Good morning and welcome. It's good to see a packed room on the first day of the Smart Cities Expo here in Barcelona. My name is Brynskov. I'm your moderator and host for today, and I'm quite excited to be here with the colleagues to be discussing one of, I think, the key, if not the key, to unlocking the values and overcoming the challenges in this digital transformation. So as you, I believe, would all agree, being here at the Smart Cities Expo, cities actually have a crucial role, especially when we decide what works and what doesn't work. So before we go into any more detail, please come to the forefront. I think there's still a couple of seats left. Let me just give you the practical context for our 1-hour session today. You all have the app, right? So this is an interactive session. We will get some interventions from our speakers, and then we would like to have a conversation with you. So please ask questions using the ask and vote system, or you can just essentially raise your hand and walk to the sides where there are microphones. We can still do like the non-digitally facilitated version. So this is my ambition, that we can have some key positions from the speakers and then a conversation. Because that's actually what we need, right? We don't need more standards. You all know, all the gazillion standards that are out there trying to grok what is a city, what is a region, what is the relationship between the big global digital dynamics and the action on the ground, the local economic development, the identity, the connections between regions, nation states. We have it all. So the task for the standards should be to unlock all the potential that is in there without completely removing all the fabric, all the cultural, the geographic, the economic fabric that cities and regions and societies, they manifest. So I'm very happy to invite our speakers on stage. So please, the Mayor of Santander, Madam Mayor, please come on stage. We have here David Boswarthick from ETSI, Sokwoo from NIST, Thilo from Roland Berger, and just so I don't forget anyone, Juan from the Fireware Foundation. So I think a perfect lineup when you want to talk about who will come together to make this happening. It's global, it's from the demand side, so the civic side, the cities. It is from the supply side, from the companies. Clearly, the idea is to create a market, but on which terms and for whom? So, let's have some positions here, excuse me, and let's have a conversation. Thank you very much, and let's welcome onto the stage the Mayor of Santander. Please.
Pues muy buenos días. Muchísimas gracias por darnos la oportunidad a la ciudad de Santander de estar en este prestigioso panel y de poder también explicar nuestra experiencia de ciudad. Como alcaldesa, pues manifestar mi cierto desconocimiento de la tecnología a nivel estrictamente técnico, pero sí la seguridad de que puedo aportar y defender el papel que los gobiernos locales tienen en el desarrollo de ciudades inteligentes, el papel que tenemos en la transformación digital, en la concienciación a los ciudadanos también y en la optimización de los recursos o la mejora de la calidad de vida de los santanderinos, que es lo que nos ocupa. También me gustaría hablarles un poco de mi ciudad. En primer lugar, Santander es una ciudad que está al norte de España, es una ciudad costera que está bañada por una de las bahías más bellas del mundo, al prestigioso club. Únicamente pertenecen 50 ciudades, cuyo plan estratégico nos dice que son dos los pilares fundamentales de la ciudad, o dos las oportunidades de negocio. Una es la innovación y la otra la cultura. Con la innovación hemos intentado estar en un momento de crisis económica en España, donde estaba cambiando el modelo productivo. Nos hemos posicionado como laboratorio urbano y, como digo, buscamos la mejora en los servicios al ciudadano. También vamos a mencionar los aspectos que brindan la adopción de estándares abiertos, ejemplarizándolos desde el ámbito de la gestión holística de la ciudad y comparación con los datos que obtenemos de la ciudad. Santander, como digo, es una ciudad en donde los inicios como Smart City se remontan al año 2010, gracias al desarrollo del proyecto que tiene como objetivo crear una infraestructura única para la experimentación y para testear y validar tecnologías y soluciones del Internet de las cosas en el ámbito de las ciudades. La experiencia Smart City nació en el año 2010 con una fortaleza junto con la Universidad de Cantabria, donde nos posicionamos como laboratorio urbano y en donde poco a poco introducimos la tecnología en los diferentes servicios. Esto nos da una obtención de datos, nos da una riqueza de conocimiento, pero es cierto que a día de hoy están totalmente aislados, son verticales. El reto que tenemos actualmente, el paso que tenemos actualmente es la plataforma Smart City. Queremos integrar todos los servicios, queremos tener un único repositorio de datos para que mediante los cuadros de control podamos ayudar o nos podamos ayudar a gestionar estas decisiones. A día de hoy, la ciudad de Santander, como digo, como laboratorio urbano, somos capaces ya actualmente de tener permeabilidad en varios, en pocos, pero en varios de estas verticales. Por ejemplo, tenemos un proyecto, el Synchronicity, en donde somos capaces de desviar el tráfico rodado en función de 3 parámetros ya, que pueden ser la congestión del propio tráfico, las emisiones de CO2 o el ruido. También tenemos otra aplicación en la ciudad en donde la recogida de residuos sólidos urbanos también está cruzada con el tráfico, con la temperatura y con nivel de llenado. Por eso podemos optimizar estos dos servicios. Convencidos de que la transformación digital de las ciudades es complicado abordarla de una sola vez, Santander ya hace años que hemos comenzado a promover la adopción de las tecnologías de la información y las comunicaciones en la mayor parte de los servicios. Ya nosotros, en el año 2013, introducimos en un pliego municipal, el de la recogida de residuos urbanos, la introducción de la tecnología. Sin embargo, todos estos esfuerzos servirían de poco si más allá de emplear la tecnología no se garantizase que ésta va a facilitar la interacción de los diferentes procesos y agentes que participan del ecosistema urbano. Una de las claves es la adopción de estándares comúnmente aceptados e interoperables que faciliten el desvanecimiento de los tradicionales silos que han caracterizado nuestra ciudad y sus servicios hasta hace menos de una década. Ahora mismo en Santander tenemos transformados ya la mayoría de los servicios, la gestión del agua, la gestión de residuos y limpieza viaria, los parques y jardines, la energía, la gestión del tráfico y semafórica, la gestión de los aparcamientos y los servicios de emergencia. Todos ellos con una visión de poder en el futuro realizar una gestión integral de la ciudad gracias a esa plataforma Smart City que les he dicho. En la actualidad, Santander, de la mano de Telefónica y NEC, ha comenzado la implantación de su plataforma Smart City que permitirá realizar una gestión holística de la ciudad. Dicha plataforma está basada en preestándar ya existentes. La integración de los datos de los servicios y sistemas municipales se está realizando utilizando modelos de datos comunes basados en casos reales. El almacenamiento y analítica de esta información nos permitirá en un futuro implementar la inteligencia de la ciudad, pudiendo realizar una gestión más eficiente de los servicios. La gestión global de toda esa información relativa a los parámetros de operación de los servicios se presentará convenientemente en forma de cuadro de mandos, con objeto de que los responsables municipales podamos tomar las decisiones más apropiadas en función de las necesidades y recursos de cada momento. Otro aspecto fundamental relativo a las ventajas que nos brindan los estándares abiertos y que deseo destacar en esta intervención emana del papel que deben jugar los datos y la monetización de los mismos. En el Ayuntamiento de Santander apostamos claramente por las políticas de datos abiertos. Muchos de esos datos, que en principio son de consumo interno para los servicios municipales, deben servir también para estimular el ecosistema de emprendimiento, para que con la utilización de los datos se pueda concebir nuevos modelos de negocio y desarrollar nuevos servicios y aplicaciones que sirvan de motor de crecimiento. Asimismo, cabe pensar que esa cantidad ingente de datos debe servir para movilizar una economía en torno a las cantidades masivas de información que se generan en el día a día y para contribuir también a rentabilizar las inversiones iniciales que se han llevado a cabo. En este sentido, la adopción de estándares interoperables y abiertos debe servir para consolidar los ecosistemas de innovación, facilitando la co-creación en el sentido más amplio y promoviendo las actividades ligadas al emprendimiento. Reiterar el papel clave de las ciudades, el beneficio que hoy en día nadie se cuestiona, que es introducir la tecnología, que nos da eficiencia, eficacia y que además nos da acierto en la toma de decisiones, el cambio del ciudadano entendido desde las administraciones locales, que ya no es un consumidor de políticas, sino que es prosumidor, a la vez consume y produce, y desde luego que en los datos que se generan en una ciudad, el análisis de esos datos y la riqueza de ese conocimiento tiene que llevarnos a gobernar de una manera predictiva. Por eso, fiel defensora en el Ayuntamiento de Santander de las Smart Cities, pero fiel defensora también de estos foros de conocimiento y de entendimiento para llegar a unos cánones universales. Muchas gracias.
Super thanks. Which better way to start than with a poster child of how to do it, a mayor who gets it, and a full ecosystem wanting to look beyond the city borders. So David, here's a city that cares about common standards. Why should the SDOs, why should the standards development organizations care about cities? So perhaps you can give your position on that.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd just like to do a quick survey. How many people in the room represent city, municipalities, and this sort of thing? Just raise your hand. About half of the room. And how many people represent the world of telecommunications, ICT, vendors and operators? Okay, so 50-50. Of course, and probably most of the people on the podium. Today, I'm not going to bore you about the world of standards. I'm going to try and do the link between cities and standards. Obviously, ETSI, hopefully all of you know who we are. We're the standards people based in Europe, but obviously with many projects all over the world. I was very pleased to see Santander calling out successful standards such as Fireware 1M, 2M and ISG SIM, which are relatively new developments. It's very refreshing to have cities who are tech friendly and tech savvy. What we also have to deal with are a number of cities who don't really know what they want, don't really know what they need, and have to have some sort of dialogue with technology people and standards people. So what I'm going to try and do here is do a little bit of the missing link, if I can find the down page. There you go. So today I'm trying to translate what we've heard from cities as their main needs. Have a quick overview of smart city standards, and there are many. There are hundreds, there are thousands, there are millions. Some of them competing, some of them completing. So when you say to a city, have you bought your standards today? They'll say, what is a standard? Why does it interest me? And where do I get them from? Very big problem, very big problem. I'm going to give a very brief overview, because I only have 6 minutes, of some of the work happening in ETSI, some of the standards bodies working on smart cities, and then possibly how we can work quicker and better and wiser and save our time. So we've had recently, ETSI is all about telecoms, ICT, connectivity. We worked on 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, radio technology, all the basic telecom standards. This is where we come from. And recently we've seen a lot of our applications changing. More automotive companies coming to us, aeronautical industry coming to us and say, we need the connectivity to help us with scenarios, with solutions, with applications. So ETSI's standards world, or standardization world, is moving up the pipe, moving towards the application, moving away from just the lower level of protocols. In those advancements, we actually go out and talk to our end users, and some of those now being cities, and we say, what do you need? What do you have to have? And many of them need. The one thing that comes back is education. We need to understand why we need standards. We need to understand what standards are. We need to understand the language you are using. If I go into the depth of these slides, you're going to find lots of horrible acronyms that nobody understands apart from me and my colleagues. Cities don't need to know that. They need to know what is the value of a standard, how will it help them deploy quickly, how will it help them save money or spend wiser, and how will it help them be better than their competitor, which may be another city, it may be another region. So it really is about what is the advantage of standards. Also, what are the main use cases? So a city, a town, a rural area, a farming district, we can all call them as smart zones or smart areas. It's not just about cities with 1 million population plus. It's about the small town. It's about the towns that are linked together to make a metropole. All of these want to be smart. Possibly I should stop using the word smart. All of these want to be connected and deploy digital services to their citizens, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Make your city digital, deploy services to your existing citizens, attract other citizens, and attract industry. You know, you want investment in your town, in your city, in your farming area. It's all about being better and more attractive than the neighboring town, and also making your citizens feel at ease. Being able to get some form of KPI, and we've already talked about the work happening in ISO. Cities need to know how well they're doing compared to before the digitization, and also compared to other cities. So what are the key performance indicators or the measures to say, this was a good investment, it is a success, it was a bad investment, it's only saving me 5%, and I could have done that by changing my processes. Also, where can we be sure that the technology will work with other technologies? So interoperability at several layers. Already in the city, can my dustbin, refuse collection, my energy, my water, my transportation data be shared? Can I connect those networks together? So already interoperability in the city or in the town. And then between cities, can I connect to my neighboring city just down the road with a bit of fiber optic? How can I expand? How can I grow? If they have a different data platform to me, it won't work. If they use different data semantic structures, it won't work. So it's really seeing and translating the ambitions of cities and helping them to understand where technology and standardized technology can help. So it's really giving a roadmap. Also, how to use the best use cases. So for some cities, it will all be about energy saving. For some, it will all be about traffic. For some, it will all be about tourism. But at the heart of that, there is a core set of technologies and standards which need to be deployed with different priorities. So helping cities to define their priorities. And also, how to allow acceleration. So if you don't want to have the whole set of technologies. Maybe you just want a profile to enable you to quickly deploy some technologies. So having some standards profiling for refuse collection, for energy savings, for transportation, that would be very useful for cities. So those were some of the initial dialogues we had. I'm not going to go into these slides in details, but these are a few of the technologies that a city may have, and they're probably out of date because there are new radio technologies every week. There are new communication technologies. The core network is evolving from 3G to 4G to 5G. We're going to be slicing the core network. We're going to be giving cities their own network slice to do things. The technology's roadmap is changing very quickly, but this at least maps some of them. And when you go up to a city and say, what have you thought about your ADSL and your plastic optical fiber, they say, just give me a service. They don't want to know about the technology. So again, it's all about trying to translate this horrible spaghetti of technology into something that cities can use. Inside ETSI, we have all of these groups working on technologies which are deployed in cities, and I won't go into them, but you can see it's a massive amount of standards work being done inside ETSI already, which can be used in a standards environment. This is probably, I have 1 minute left, I'm just going to leave this slide up there and talk to you about this. It's brand new, it's got a red sticker on it. We've just created an ISG, an industry specification group inside ETSI, to reply to this problem. The problem statement being there's no one place inside ETSI, ETSI being an official standards body, where cities can go and talk to somebody. They don't know who to talk to. If they go to a 3GPP meeting, there's going to be 1,000 delegates saying, why are you talking to me? They need a translation function to help them really express their needs in ICT, express the problems they've had, express the solutions they've found, and share that between cities. So all this group really wants to do is engage with the cities to ensure that they can come together with a standardized ICT roadmap and then help each other to deploy quickly smart solutions in the city. And hopefully, I'll leave that one up there and I'll end 30 minutes early for any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. If not 30 minutes, then at least 30 seconds. So, really interesting to see here on stage, actually those who get it. Excuse me. And then the actual problem being how to share that knowledge. So it becomes suddenly, the technology is backgrounded, right? So even though it's heavily depending on technology roadmaps, actually the education around this seems to be a key. So, Sokwoo, from the American perspective or the North American perspective, I believe we have some of the same ambitions going on. So perhaps we can return to we can then converge. But perhaps first, give the perspective from your side. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you. By the way, the picture I had over there looked I'm very slim. I'm not that slim, by the way, as you can see. So I am Sokwoo Rhee. I work for National Institute of Standards and Technology, which is part of the U.S. Department of Commerce. And we specialize in measurement science, and also we specialize in standards. Now, we work on IoT and smart cities, obviously, as a part of our efforts. Before I start talking about smart cities, I want to talk about IoT a little bit, because these two fields or these two expertise are closely related. From smart city experts' perspective, IoT is a piece of equation. From IoT perspective, smart city is a one large application example. All right. So if you apply IoT to public sector, that becomes a smart city. IoT is a lot more than just connecting devices. I mean, probably a lot of you may think that IoT is about connectivity, connecting sensors together. That's just a small piece of it. IoT is about collecting data, analyzing the data, and take action for data, and then bring it down to actuation, so that the whole feedback loop is completed. That's what IoT is. And then if you overlay or superimpose that concept onto a city, that becomes a smart city. And now, when you talk about feedback loop, it could be autonomous feedback, but it could also be human in the loop. Maybe a person can make a decision, or person can actually participate in data collection process. There was a long introduction to talk about the problems of smart cities as we have today. We talk about smart cities and smart communities a lot, but it's an extremely fragmented market. And as you can see, many cities are doing their own development, deployments, custom solutions, custom tailored projects. But after the project is over, many of these projects are not very sustainable. And that's a big problem for a smart city. So in theory, we were promised to see exponential curve. Okay, exponential meaning like this, like hockey stick. In reality, what we are seeing is more of an incremental improvements. It's getting better. It's not like we're seeing the overshoot. Okay, why? We believe the problem of those incremental improvement is because lack of replication. Everybody does their own thing, but there is no clear agreed consensus on the best practices. So if it's a worse situation for cities, they cannot leverage each other's investment. For companies, they cannot create a product that can sell in millions. All right, so this is a deadlock situation. So what do we need to do? NIST has been working on a program called the Global City Teams Challenge with the goal to demonstrate three things: replicability, solutions that can be replicated in many cities, not just one, not just two, but hundreds of cities around the world. Second, scalability. You want to create a solution that can go and deploy in real world environment, not just in the lab. Third, sustainability. This is more of a business case problem, but if you have a funding to deploy sensors, that's great, good for you. But after the funding is over, cities has to take over that problem, that system. And if you do not have a sustainable business model behind it, you're not going to go for 50 years. You're not going to go for 100 years. So we are trying to identify those best practices that can be replicated and scaled and sustainable. That provides tangible benefits. This is important. You can do whatever you want to do for fun, but at the end of the day, if the solution does not give you the real tangible benefits that you can feel, then that solution is not going to be able to be sustained long term. Cities will not going to like it. At the end of the day, cities are there, city government is there to help the citizens. Now, we also want to tackle cybersecurity and privacy issues very seriously. That's why NIST is partnering with the US Department of Homeland Security, Science and Technology Directorate to tackle this as a first order concern, not something that you add on later, because you can add on later when that something already goes wrong. You heard this scenario so many times probably. So how do we do this? It's easier said than done. This is how we do it. Instead of each city working with each company one by one, we want to bring in multiple cities from all over the world. And we also want to bring in companies, universities, nonprofits that can provide technical solutions and coalesce them around the common shared topics of interest: autonomous vehicles, traffic congestion issues, renewable energy, and public safety issues, and water and energy and waste management issues. Whatever that comes out of this process will naturally be replicable because that is agreed on by multiple cities. At least that was developed with a collaboration of multiple cities. And it will be sustainable because it will, at the end of the day, it will have to be beneficial to the general public. Now, this cannot be done just by the US cities. Obviously, there are a lot of cities outside of the US, a lot of population living outside it, so it has to be done globally. So once we have these teams of the projects, we want to create something called the superclusters. It's a coalescing these different but shared projects into certain sectors. And we want to create something called the best practices, the blueprints, which is going to be able to provide a jump start to the cities who are trying to do smart cities but do not know where to start. Since 2014, Global City Teams Challenge has incubated over 200 action clusters across the world. And over 160 cities and over 400 companies and universities are participating. Now, there are 7 superclusters, as you can see, transportation. This is pretty well-known sectors in smart cities, and public safety, utility, wireless, city data, and 2 more important superclusters: data governance and data governance and exchange is becoming more and more important. And also agriculture and rural area. By the way, when I talk about smart city, it doesn't necessarily mean large cities. There are a lot of people, a lot of population still living in rural and area with a lot of agriculture applications. These smart solutions what we talk about has to be able to apply to those communities as well. So, as I mentioned, it is important to look at privacy and cybersecurity issues as a main issue. Now, it's extremely important to look at this as a first-order concern, not as a later add-on. Because if you try to add cybersecurity later, it's not going to be complete. You're not going to end up with the best products. The problem is, not many players are aware of how to get involved. So we partner with the DHS, SNT. NIST, GCTC community brings in cities and the teams already incubated. DHS has a lot of cybersecurity and privacy expertise. We bring that in. And we are creating a new challenge called the Smart and Secure Cities and Communities Challenge, which is going to kick off on February 6th in Washington, D.C. And you can find more information about it. Contact information, you can send me email if you have any questions, and you can go to the website. Right on time. Thank you.
Many thanks, Sokwoo. So we moved from the ground to the standards to the global. Now, I have a question for the audience while Mr. Zelt gets up to the podium. How many in the room are involved in standards development? All right. How many are from cities involved in standards development? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. not 7, 8, not too bad. I know of very few cities who have a department or even have, know who's the standards person, because usually it's connected to the clusters, it's connected to the verticals. But in fact, what we're facing now is, the convergence of all of this. You mentioned it as your one big application, or you could say one big concern, right? One big mess. So who actually does it from the city side? So you're the ETSI ambition also to address this, and we're clearly seeing, okay, there's a mismatch of the organization around this and the job to be done, right? So one of the people who actually are consulting and helping to understand how can you then move forward from each side is you, Thilo. So please, your position and join the conversation. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Martin, for the kind introduction and the organizers for the invitation. So my name is Thilo Zelt. I'm a partner with Roland Berger. Some of you might know the company. We are the largest consulting firm of European origin in Europe. I'm focusing mainly on work with government and government bodies for the last couple of years, and they're in this field mainly on digital strategies and digital transformation of government bodies. On the strategy side, we have been working with national governments, regional governments, and also city and community governments on their digital strategies. And that's obviously a topic which is very strong. We just did a survey in Germany over all communities down to very small communities, like a few thousand people only, and 80% of those came back and said, look, we need a digital strategy. So there is a big understanding globally and in Europe as well on what we need. There are a couple of players that we can, let's say, learn from. But our question was, since a lot of companies and also cities are addressing us with the question, okay, this is a complex issue, how do we address this? And so it all starts with a strategy and then turns into, at some point, a business model. So for example, we are now advising a couple of companies as well who are providers of services in their market approach to smart cities. We're also advising, let's say, government-owned companies, sometimes even national telecoms, on their strategy to turn actually countries into smart city hubs and develop this. And today I will talk to you about some work we've been doing in the, let's say, more city-oriented context. And this study, I brought also a couple of printouts, a little bit old-fashioned, so we printed only, I think, 50 of them, so a couple of them are still there. Everyone else can download it from our website. And we did this survey last year with the simple question and see, look, everyone talks about smart city, but what are the actual approaches that cities take to smart city? So we compared about 90 global smart city strategies. I'll show you the picture right away. I hope it's readable. So we actually looked what kind of smart cities are out there and tried to analyze them in a more systematic way to learn from them, to see where are good practices, best practices maybe, and what can we, let's say, derive from that kind of analysis. Obviously, as we are consultants, we use the framework to do that, and so we built what we call the Roland Berger Smart City Strategy Index, which is built and based of some work we did with research institutes on a systematic, let's say, analyzing of smart city strategies down to about 70 or 80 criteria in these 3 fields. So strategic planning, action fields, IT infrastructure. The action fields can then again be broken down into 6 or 7 different fields where basically all the smart city applications and services you might want to have find their focus. So what came out of this analysis, and this is the overall result globally, so we put this into an index and said, analyze the strategies in terms of how far are you addressing all these issues which are basically set in this index. And the overall result was that out of these 87 strategies, only, let's say, a couple of them got to a level of above 70. Most of them showed significant room for improvement in getting up to the par, let's say, of addressing the key issues that you need to address in terms of smart city strategies. We do not publish the full list of rankings because this work was not about being ranking or showing rankings and showing who is better, who is worse. We only show the top 3 results, which are quite interesting for several reasons. Vienna, Chicago, and Singapore. You will find more details on the website and also in the study about why specifically those 3 cities stand out And I think Santander did not so bad either in the list, I can say, to the mayor next to me. What is interesting, just to give you a couple of insights, the coverage of action fields is very different globally. So most strategies focus on mobility, energy and environment, and some on government. Key aspects for city like buildings, education, health are typically not addressed or quite, let's say, limited in their reach yet. So that's something we need to work on. Yeah. Also, we asked, do you need to be big or do you need to be, let's say, rich to be beautiful in terms of your strategy? The answer is mostly no. So you see that there are cities which have quite good strategies and are not typically a very big city or are typically rich cities. So it does not need to be a big or a very rich city to have a decent strategy here. Yeah? The best practices are then broken down into the action fields and into the different segments of the index. So you can in each, let's say, field and even criteria find cities which are, let's say, in our view, best practice examples you can learn from if you want to build a smart city strategy. Yeah. Some conclusions. I have 3 minutes left. From a best practice perspective, we draw, let's say, 10 conclusions on how a smart city strategy should be developed. First of all, in the course of developing a strategy, the role of the city and its administration and its services should be re-evaluated. Meaning maybe you should not ask what is the standard process and what is the digital version of that, but what kind of services do you want to give to your citizens in the future, and how can that be addressed by your smart city services. Second point is involve citizens, business and other stakeholders. It sounds simple, but most people don't do it today. Yeah? So meaning start by talking to your stakeholder community, talk to your community and also to the citizens itself. So Vienna has an outstanding track record in specifically that aspect, and we think it's very necessary in order to have a strategy that works out and is accepted also by your local community. Third point, don't think only about e-government. We see that specifically in Germany and also some other country that the digitalization strategies of cities focus on e-government solution. That's typically not a very useful use case. So think broadly, think about the 6 action fields we presented and cover them as well as you can, because there you see a lot of value added from such strategies. Yeah. Encourage self-sustaining business models, and I could now have a separate speech on business models alone. That's basically most of the work we're doing right now. For example, in Darmstadt, which you know is the winner of the German contest on smart cities last year, that we support in exactly that question. They have set up a company basically taking care of smart city activities. And the question is, what kind of portfolio do we develop and what kind of business model do we run for smart city services? Some are profitable, some may be breaking even, some may be something we have to sponsor as a city. And how to orchestrate that, how to build a business model that has a portfolio approach here is something which is, I think, reasonably new in the city arena to think that way. And that's something you have to develop. And the same holds true basically also for the private side, the private sector parties, which come to us to question, okay, if I am an energy producer, how can I develop my own smart city business models? And they shouldn't underestimate that in developing such a strategy. Okay, data strategy, data platform, I think a couple of people have said and touched on that. It's reasonably new to have that and to look into that. Darmstadt is doing it, Santander, I just learned, is doing that. But it's still not a standard to say, okay, we need this platform and we also need, let's say, data security, cyber security right from the start, otherwise it would not work. Yeah. Finally, involve your infrastructure operators. It's also not, seems easy, but a lot of cities do not do that right. A lot of public companies are there. They have their own budgets, their own business cases that can be applied. And finally, gain political backing and integrate public feedback into your activities. And finally, establish a coordinating body which has its own budget, its own, let's say, strategic also input. It can go into the diverse aspects that a smart city strategy has to cover. I think that's it for today. You can download the study. You can do a self-assessment if you want on your own smart city strategy if you want. More than 1,000 people have done so already. Thank you very much for your attention.
Super interesting to see, I would say, this universe of case studies. Of course, the question then begs, what is the role of standards to align all of these things? And we can come back to that convergence point. So also interesting to see how many, so the numbers, there's about, 500,000 cities out there. But how many are bigger than 100,000? 4,000, more or less, right? So, I mean, then there are not so many, in fact. So by far the majority are not, right? So by far the majority of cities and communities are small and probably not the front runners. So how can you even, when you see the convergence in this landscape, think already about how does this connect to these let's say, other areas? Juanjo, one of the persons who have actually then tried to put together an ecosystem that not only joins the different verticals, but also works across different sizes and different geographies. So from the Fireware Foundation, give us your position, having heard, in a way, the background. So how do you operate in this space?
Thank you, Martin. So, well, this is the last presentation, so I really focus it in a way that could work even as a wrap-up of some of the points that have already been mentioned before. What is the path for success in the boosting standards and so on? Well, our vision is summarized in these three main concepts, and I think that is the important message that I wanted to deliver to you in this presentation. First, we need a vision. Second, we need to move that vision into execution. That is critical. And last but not least, we have to be able to consolidate results, because otherwise we are not evolving over time. So what about the vision? Well, good news is that if we take into consideration two quite relevant initiatives in smart cities, one led by cities or driven by cities, like the Open and Agile Smart Cities initiative, another one more driven by industry, or at least engaging quite a number of industry companies. They are starting to, distill a common vision on how smart city should be and what kind of standards can be adopted in order to create this common market enabling portability and interoperability of solutions. So the OASC initiative is an initiative that is currently engaging more than 100 cities in more than 22 countries all over the world, agreeing on adopting a minimum set of common mechanisms that would enable portability and interoperability of solutions. TM Forum driving a reference architecture that aligns with those principles, by the way, the same that were defined by OASC, maybe moving a little bit a step further, bringing concepts like support to the data economy and the notion of city as a platform. What is common to both, and I think this is kind of working as a glue, is that Fireware is brought there as a technology that can be actually put in place to implement those principles. What are those and the vision? Well, first of all, we need that cities bring infrastructure where data can be shared, a common space where you can break the silos of information, because many cities today already have a lot of systems deployed solving problems, specific challenges like waste management, like traffic management, and so on. But those are vertical silos of information. Cities have to break those silos, create a common layer where all this information is shared, and then governance systems can be built on top. So one of these mechanisms that cities are looking for and industry are looking for within the two initiatives that I mentioned are about creating the standards for this common information layer. And that is what Fireware is bringing and these initiatives are adopting. Also common information models, because we need to come up with the same vision of what we mean when we are talking about the street, about the traffic, about the bins, about the people that are living in the city. And creating this common lingua is essential for the portability of solutions. So we need to move into the path going towards definition of common information models, which will ultimately lead and allow portability and interoperability of solutions. The third element, ingredient, is that of being able to publish information, because I think the value of a smart city is not just a city that consumes the data for the better management of the services it provides. It's about bringing part of this data and make it available to third parties so that they can create applications and run innovative solutions. So data publication platforms and moving the open data approaches into right-time open data approaches where you can release information but in real time about what's going on in the city become essential. And creating common mechanisms, common standards for cities in how this can be done is the way to move forward. Last but not least, cities have to recognize that when describing what's going on in the city, they do not have all the data. Some parties may have that data. So how we can stimulate them to release that data and share it for the benefit of those who are creating solutions for the citizens, for the business? Well, that has to do a lot with the data economy of concepts, allowing companies, organizations to release part of the data, and why not monetize that data? And even the cities may wish to get something in return of the data they offer. So bringing technologies to enable this becomes also a part of this vision towards a journey that would allow cities to evolve from where they are mostly today, which is an area where, yeah, they are improving, they are bringing efficient solutions, but they have the opportunity to move towards becoming engines of growth, enabling creation of innovative solutions. This is the vision. The vision is there. Now what we need is to move into execution. And for that we need to create what I call a virtuous circle. A virtuous circle where more and more cities are becoming part and adopting these mechanisms, these attracting solutions providers to create solutions based on these common mechanisms, and the ability of having many different solutions based on these common mechanisms competing will drive to creation of high quality solutions. And those high quality solutions will move and create incentives for more cities to join. And this is the virtuous circle we need to create and where we are now. And for that we need leadership of cities that share that vision, that have the resources and want to move into execution and lead the path. Cities like Santander, like Malaga, like Bristol, like Utrecht. Several cities are already in that move, and together with TM Forum, Five Foundation is launching this Smart City Expo World Congress, an initiative we call Frontrunner Smart Cities, looking for these cities which are willing to lead the path. So, an invitation for you to a workshop that TM Forum and ourselves are running this Thursday. There is information as a side event on the website, and those that want to learn more are invited to join. Finally, ensure consolidation of results. And this is where finally standard bodies like ETSI, like ITUT come into place. It's not only standardization bodies, I think also it's the responsibility of organizations like the European Commission, which are now creating recommendations about, for instance, what are the building blocks that are required for creating the Connecting Europe facilities of the future. This is the step that will come afterwards, but we have to go step by step through the process I have just described. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Juanjo. So we have actually the whole, I would say, the whole universe here. We have the people on the ground, we have those who try to specify, standardize, who integrate and connect, those who advise, and those who try to actually build ecosystems around. And I could say that there could have been other representatives, but this is the kind of stakeholders who are trying to make this happen. So now let's have a discussion of how. How do we connect these things? How do we get a convergence? Right. So send your questions here. We have 10 minutes for the dialogue. And I'll take the first one here from Philip Heuermann. From a governance perspective, which institution or organization is most suitable to set and oversee common standards? Okay. So in fact, I mean, we do have the UN. At some point, they even have a focus group on data processing and management for IoT and smart cities. It takes all of these streams in. So maybe a question to go through the panel here. While you put more questions here, or you can also raise your hand or go stand before the microphone. How do we get this convergence? I mean, from the city's perspective, how do we get the market to organize so you're making your life more easy, more efficient when you want to deliver good services to your citizens? How? So maybe you can, there's a handheld mic, yes?
Bueno, yo creo que desde luego que es el objetivo final, que es que el ciudadano tenga cada vez mejores servicios, y por eso creo que la administración, que los gobiernos locales es el mejor laboratorio o es la mejor puesta en común. Lo que tenemos que tratar y lo que nosotros como ciudad estamos en estos momentos es que todos los datos que por ser una de las ciudades inteligentes pioneras, pues Santander, nos posicionamos como laboratorio hermano, medimos muchísimas cosas, pero la necesidad actual es que esas cosas se puedan interrelacionar una con otra. Yo siempre le digo a los ciudadanos que lo que sería maravilloso es que, pues si un día hay una fuga en el servicio de agua, de abastecimiento de agua, inmediatamente los semáforos se pongan en ámbar, inmediatamente el tráfico se desvíe por otra calle, inmediatamente el transporte urbano tampoco pase por ahí, se le pueda mandar un mensaje a todos los ciudadanos diciendo que va a haber un corte de agua por avería. Para eso, para que eso el ciudadano lo pueda ver, lo que necesitamos es que todas estas verticales hablen el mismo idioma, como se ha dicho aquí, y puedan interrelacionarse. ¿Hacia dónde queremos ir? Yo quiero ponerme enfrente de los ciudadanos diciendo que con el Internet de las cosas, que con la plataforma y que con la interpretación de los datos puedo ser predictiva, puedo adelantarme a los problemas que tenga la ciudad. Entonces sí creo que la administración local, que los ayuntamientos, que las entidades locales y que las ciudades son el mejor laboratorio urbano porque somos los más cercanos al ciudadano.
Very good. So passing the microphone to David, just reflecting. So, I mean, one thing is to get all the mayors on this level. So you, from the top, you can organize and orchestrate it all. I would say that's a good start. So, David, ETSI, a European organization, how can the CDP and the other initiatives, how can you help support this convergence upwards and downwards and to the sides?
Well, in answer to that very, very frequent question, there is no one standards body that will define a smart city for a municipality or for a mayor or for a metropole. There are multiple standards bodies, multiple fora, multiple technologies. So you have ISO, ITU and IEC, CEN, CENELEC, ETSI, you have Fireware, you have GSMA, you have TM Forum. I have a lovely slide that shows a few of those standards bodies, and the cities don't know who to talk to. So the role of intelligent standards bodies is to simplify the language towards the city and also to ensure absolute cooperation and collaboration between the standards bodies. So ETSI is working with CEN and CENELEC, ETSI is working with ISO, IC and ITU. We're working with Fireware inside ISG SIM. So it's forbid duplication and go towards collaboration and cooperation. Once you have that simplified standards landscape, you give it to the cities and help them in a language which is simple to understand, and that is the solution. Very easy to say, almost impossible to do. Thank you.
So the other side of the Atlantic, could we please do the same, or?
So a couple of points that I want to make, very important points here. First, the problem is not the lack of standards. No. There are so many standards out there, almost too many of them. The problem is the adoption of those standards, okay? So that's really important point to understand. Second, smart city standard is not same as other standards. Cities are deploying solutions with or without standards anyway, all right? And they've been doing this for a long time. So you cannot create a standard in a conference room. Even if you bring in 200 experts from the world, but they think they are the experts in the smart city standards, whatever comes out of it will not going to be adopted unless cities and companies and universities decide to adopt them. So instead of trying to come up with the artificial standard, you really have to look into what is being successfully deployed today and try to extract a common, we call it distilling process. You have to extract the commonalities, successful commonalities out of that and document them. That's the way to do the standards in smart cities specifically and IoT in general. That's that's the message I have. So which governance body should take care of it? Great question.
And then maybe to Mr. Zelt, how long do we have to wait? I mean, so how do you, where do we go if we want it now? I mean you're the consultant.
Yeah, well, there's a big process going on in standardization, and it's useful, and we need to do it. It's going to be a bottom-up process. It will take time. We don't have it yet, and there's no single standard that you could apply as it trickles down into different action fields. So that's why we need to work with heuristics for the time being. That's one reason why we set up this strategic aspect and a strategic framework, because for the time being, as long as we don't have standards, you need to orient yourself towards the best practices. You need to see what segments do you need, what do you need to cover, what you could look at in terms of good examples, and then you can be reasonably sure that you don't make a big mistake, let's say. Yeah, and this situation, I think, will take a couple of years until the standard bodies have done their work, which is a needed and serious work, but will take some time until we can come up with some, probably it will not be one, but a couple of standards that are stable enough to be applied to someone who wants to address this as a new project. Yeah.
Right. So, from your perspective, Juan, trying to get the convergence, how do you converge all the convergence efforts?
Well, I think Sokwoo mentioned something that is important, which is adoption. What are the candidate standards that get adopted? And there is where leadership is needed, because we need the cities that really go and say, okay, I will take the risk of adopting and betting on this particular standard. And this is what we are indeed trying to do with initiatives like OASC, within TM-Phone, with the support of Fireware. We are betting on one way. Whether we will succeed or not, let's see. But you have to go and do this without waiting for the standards to come. Then, following this driven by implementation approach, we need to consolidate the results in the standardization bodies, which is, by the way, something we are also doing with ETSI or IDUD. I think that is the way. So
there is a few one ways, which, I mean, so essentially what you're saying is it has to be driven by people doing things. We cannot wait for the SDOs. But then maybe that's not just one way. As you said, there are certain ways to do that. So hopefully they also at some point converge, or we will have, let's say, a market where there are several ways. Well, all the 500,000 cities aren't similar, right? So maybe we may even have different styles, but at some point we might find the Wi-Fi or the USB or the simple ways to loosely connect some of this mess so that it won't just be a big concern, but in fact be something that is improving our lives. So with those words, I would like to ask you to give a final hand for the panel. Thank you for your participation and for sharing.